This girl, desperate to be expelled from the palace, intentionally sabotaged her exam to ensure failure. Suddenly, the crown prince appeared, offering her surprisingly attentive guidance. With a mischievous smirk, he declared he'd help her achieve her dream of becoming a eunuch. Every time she attempted to write a wrong answer, the crown prince materialized, forcing her to correct it. When she purposefully marked the paper incorrectly, he provided a new one. Only when her exam reached a perfect score, leaving no room for argument, did he prepare to leave. Seeing this, she quickly stuffed the exam paper into her mouth. However, the crown prince patted her head and retrieved it. Thus, she successfully passed yet another exam. After much hardship, this man finally captured the heart of his goddess. As they embraced, he secretly raised a hand to thank someone hidden in a tree. It turned out his success wasn't due to his own efforts, but rather to this girl disguised as a man. In this region, everyone knew of Ra-on, the renowned master of courtship. One day, an incredibly wealthy young nobleman sought Ra-on's help in writing a love letter to a pen pal of many years. For Ra-on, this was a trivial task. Unbeknownst to him, the nobleman's beloved pen pal was the princess. Furthermore, the love letter accidentally fell into the hands of the crown prince. Unwilling to risk his sister's safety, the crown prince decided to teach the letter's author a lesson. Upon receiving a summons, the nobleman panicked. Cowardly, he rushed to Ra-on for help, begging him to take his place at the meeting. Ra-on initially refused this absurd request. As Ra-on turned to leave, the nobleman called out, "Sam Rang, wait, is this amount of silver enough to repay you? My conscience cannot be bought, young master. What about this outfit as well? All right, I suppose." And so, Ra-on went to the mountain in the nobleman's place to meet the dream lover. To Ra-on's surprise, the pen pal turned out to be a handsome young scholar. Terrified, Ra-on attempted to escape. However, the nobleman's generous payment tempted him back. Upon completing this task, he would receive a substantial sum. Ultimately, Ra-on decided to face the scholar, this devourer of both men and women's hearts. They had barely exchanged a few words when the crown prince recognized Ra-on as an impostor. He cornered Ra-on, demanding to be taken to the person truly involved with his sister. Reaching a wooded area, Ra-on hatched a desperate plan. Remembering a pit dug nearby by creditors, Ra-on led the crown prince to its edge and pushed him in. During the struggle, the crown prince managed to grab Ra-on's ankle, pulling them both into the deep pit. Furious, the crown prince pinned Ra-on, ready to send her to meet the king of hell. Suddenly, a small snake appeared on his shoulder. The crown prince screamed in terror, while Ra-on calmly tossed the snake aside. The crown prince initially planned to climb onto Ra-on's shoulders to reach the top, then rescue her. However, Ra-on couldn't support his weight, and he slid back down. In this precarious situation, the crown prince devised a new plan. He pulled Ra-on close and lifted her, intending for her to climb out and then help him. However, upon reaching the top, Ra-on activated coward mode, perching on the edge and looking down at the crown prince with a mischievous grin. "Well, aren't you going to bring me a branch to pull me up? What are you thinking? Fine, fine. I'll go get someone to rescue you right away. I sincerely apologize. Do you even know who I am to treat me like this? If I ever see you again, I'll make sure you meet the king of hell." "Fine. If fate brings us together again, I'll do anything you ask. Even if you ask me to be your dog, I will. Honestly, I didn't want to do that. Today, I was really, really happy. Goodbye, and good riddance." But upon returning to town, Ra-on saw a wanted poster with her own face on it. Not long before, Ra-on had played matchmaker for a seemingly perfect couple. Unbeknownst to her, the young woman was already betrothed, a bride purchased by a nobleman. Upon learning his future daughter-in-law had eloped, the nobleman was furious and ordered a city-wide search for Ra-on. Just then, patrol officers passed by. Ra-on quickly drew a mole on her face with ink, but was spotted by a man nearby who recognized her resemblance to the wanted person. As the officers approached, he called them over, curious to see what would happen to the person on the poster after being caught, assuming the nobleman would likely deal with her before she even reached the magistrate. Hearing the officers, Ra-on argued back defensively, her strange behavior attracting their attention. As an officer stepped closer to examine her, the man beside her suddenly pulled her close. "Shouldn't you be going home? What are you still doing here?" They chatted amicably as they walked. At an intersection, a man suddenly appeared and kidnapped Ra-on. Unable to pay off her debts, she was sold to the palace as a eunuch. Inside the castration chamber, the eunuch maker raised his anxiety-soothing tea, preparing to begin. Quick-witted, Ra-on noticed his fondness for drink and began flattering him, plying him with alcohol. The next morning, the eunuch maker awoke to find blood splattered everywhere and Ra-on lying still on the bed. Lifting the covers, he saw fresh blood underneath and assumed Ra-on had completed the procedure. However, the truth was different. The previous night, after the eunuch maker had passed out, Ra-on had used a shard of glass to cut her thigh, a desperate act to conceal her identity. While bandaging the wound, Ra-on recalled her childhood. As a child, she was harshly punished by her mother for secretly wearing makeup. Her mother warned her never to reveal she was a girl, as she was the daughter of a rebel and discovery would mean death. Finally, Ra-on had become the eunuch her mother had always wished for. After binding her chest, Ra-on was taken into the palace. That night, as she was falling asleep, she remembered the eunuch maker's morning warning. After this, their wounds will be inspected. If they aren't satisfactory, heads will roll. Uneasy, Ra-on decided to escape. However, just as she reached the door with her belongings, she bumped into the crown prince. They stared at each other, stunned. Ra-on couldn't forget how she had tricked him. "If I ever see you again, I'll make sure you meet the king of hell." "Fine. If fate brings us together again, I'll do anything you ask. Even if you ask me to be your dog, I will." Contrary to Ra-on's anxiety, the crown prince smiled brightly, lifting her chin. "I'm really happy to see you again, puppy." Mistaking the crown prince for a guard, Ra-on begged him to beat her, settling their score. As he raised his hand, she covered her head, but instead of striking her, he gently stroked her hair. "Who would hit their own puppy? You have to pet them, play with them. Perhaps we'll see each other often. All right, puppy, run along." Ra-on's first escape attempt failed. Soon after, a training session for new eunuchs commenced. The head eunuch announced sternly, "To become true eunuchs, you must face 3 trials, a physical examination and 2 written tests." The physical examination filled Ra-on with dread. Entering the room, she saw everyone lowering their pants for inspection, unsure what to do. Just as the examiner urged her to undress, another eunuch rushed in, reporting the Queen Dowager had collapsed. The examiner hurried off, accidentally dropping his seal on Ra-on's examination paper. The replacement examiner, seeing half of the seal on the pass section, assumed she had already been checked. During the second written exam, Ra-on planned to answer randomly to get expelled. However, the crown prince, overseeing the exam, saw through her plan. Hearing the examiner mention that those who failed would be expelled, the crown prince recalled Ra-on's panicked expression the previous night and devised a new way to torment her. And so, the crown prince, disguised as a eunuch, entered the examination hall for the sake of a lowly eunuch. At night, the crown prince intentionally assigned her to a shabby room. Lifting her lantern, she entered, noticing dark shadows flitting about. As Ra-on approached for a closer look, a head popped down from above, startling her so badly she nearly fainted. The shadow turned out to be the crown prince's guard. The two of them sat in the room, drinking and chatting. Suddenly, Ra-on, sitting at the table, jolted awake. She repeatedly questioned their identities and why they were drinking in such a strange place. The guard remained silent while the crown prince, sitting beside her, just laughed. Noticing a cobweb on the crown prince's head, Ra-on reached out to brush it away, but the guard swiftly grabbed her wrist. The crown prince kindly intervened on her behalf. Abruptly, she snatched his cup and downed the contents in one gulp, proceeding to drink several more cups in quick succession. Thoroughly drunk, Ra-on began acting up in front of them. The crown prince teased her like a puppy. Look left, left. Sit, stand, bark. He was training her. But then, Ra-on, playing along, pretended to be a puppy and playfully nipped the crown prince's hand. Though the bite caused him to yelp, he wasn't angry, his curiosity about Ra-on only intensifying. The next day, Ra-on intentionally submitted a blank paper for the third exam. Just as she was celebrating the prospect of being dismissed, A eunuch arrived and dragged her off to work at a banquet at the Prime Minister's residence. There, she was tasked with catching chickens in the mountains. After a struggle, Ra-on was covered in dirt, the chickens having flown onto the roof. She climbed up, attempting to grab one, but fell. Coincidentally, she was caught by young Master Kim, who was returning from a stroll. On their way, they chatted. Kim Yoon-sung instantly saw through Ra-on's male disguise but said nothing. Back at the Prime Minister's residence, Ra-on encountered the Crown Prince and his guard again. The three sat down to drink and talk. Ra-on mentioned having seen the Crown Prince before, asking if they knew his nickname. "What is it? Flower Prince?" "Oh my, Your Highness. As expected, everyone in the palace knows." "Anything else?" "Half human, half beast." "That's right. I heard the Crown Prince has the blood of both human and beast. There's also another nickname, Mad Dog, never knowing when to bark and when not to." "Shut up." The Crown Prince's face turned green with anger, while his guard struggled to contain his laughter. The following day, Ra-on returned to the palace, anticipating her dismissal. Suddenly, a guard apprehended her. The princess had discovered that Ra-on had ghostwritten the love letter for her. Feeling deceived and humiliated, the princess drew her sword, intending to strike. "Drop the sword." The Crown Prince suddenly appeared. Expecting a heroic rescue, Ra-on was shocked when he ignored her, kneeling on the ground, and instead seized the sword from his sister. He roared, "Lock Ra-on in the dungeon, 1,000 cuts!" The princess was astonished by her brother's fury, while Ra-on cowered in fear. The Crown Prince feigned outrage, declaring he would report this to their father, so that "the one who deceived my sister will suffer 1,000 cuts." Fearing her father's involvement, the princess quickly begged her brother to retract his order. Thus, Ra-on escaped another near-death experience. Outside, Kim Yoon-sung asked the Crown Prince, "Sooner or later, Ra-on will learn your identity. Why continue hiding it?" The Crown Prince, glancing at the passing court ladies, replied, "If Ra-on looked like them, I would be extremely displeased." Meanwhile, the newly released Ra-on was still in shock, dazed and lost in thought. The head eunuch suddenly announced that the results of the exam from 2 days prior would be revealed. Ra-on, thinking her dismissal was imminent, slapped her cheeks and beamed. Unbeknownst to her, the Crown Prince had approved her exam. Her blank paper bore the seal of approval. During the announcement, Ra-on, still expecting to be sent home, grinned from ear to ear. She froze, stunned. Then, she was assigned to Royal Consort Suk's quarters. Royal Consort Suk was one of the few women in the palace who didn't vie for power and was known for her understanding nature. When the Crown Prince lost his mother at a young age, she treated him like her own son. They shared a deep bond. However, in recent years, her health had declined. The king only frequented Royal Consort Young's quarters and hadn't visited her in a long time. Longing for the king, she asked Ra-on to deliver a letter expressing her affection. After receiving the letter, Royal Consort Suk's mute daughter wrote a note to Ra-on, emphasizing the importance of delivering the letter to their father. Ra-on assured the young girl, patting her chest, that she would complete the mission. But when she asked the head eunuch to deliver the letter, he pulled a reply from his sleeve and handed it to her. Ra-on, suspicious, asked him what this meant, and the head eunuch merely looked at her as if she were a fool. Ra-on suddenly remembered that when she received the original letter, Royal Consort Suk's court lady had advised her, only by pretending would she avoid trouble. At the time, Ra-on hadn't understood, but now, a glimmer of comprehension dawned on her, and she snatched the letter back. This scene was witnessed by Royal Consort Young, who inquired about Royal Consort Suk's health. Upon hearing Ra-on's reply, she scoffed. In that condition, she can still write letters? Then, she slapped Ra-on, warning her not to deliver any more letters from Royal Consort Suk. Kim Yoon-sung, hidden nearby, saw everything. After Royal Consort Young left, he led Ra-on into the woods, offering comfort to her wounded spirit. That evening, undeterred, Ra-on snuck into the king's chambers with a letter. While trying to figure out how to deliver it, she bumped into a eunuch delivering memorials. Learning that the king would be reviewing them that night, Ra-on slipped the letter among them. The next morning, Ra-on excitedly delivered the reply to Royal Consort Suk. But upon opening it, the contents left her horrified. The king, though reigning for 16 years, was tormented by nightmares every night. Outwardly an emperor, he was under the thumb of royal consort Young. For 7 years, he hadn't dared to see his beloved consort. Even after receiving her letter, he could only reply with a blank sheet of paper. The shock devastated royal consort Suk, leaving her heartbroken. She instructed Ra'an to burn the blank letter. When the crown prince learned of this, he told Ra'an that the reply must have been tampered with by a servant, but she insisted that the king himself had given it to her. That night, the crown prince confronted his father, urging him to visit royal consort Suk. But the king, citing royal consort Young's pregnancy, refused. This further enraged the crown prince. He was heartbroken by his father's weakness. Years ago, his mother had been harmed, and his father, too weak to investigate and avenge her, had let it go. Now, his adoptive mother was gravely ill, and his father remained passive, afraid even to visit her. But the king had his reasons. He confessed to his son that upon ascending the throne, he had lost 2,000 subjects and his beloved queen. Now, he had to be cowardly to protect his only remaining son. As Ra'an prepared to destroy the letter, Kim Yoon-sung intervened. When held to a flame, the blank paper revealed hidden writing. It was a secret message written with special ink, visible only under firelight. Having discovered the truth, Ra'an rushed to royal consort Suk with a letter. The lovers, separated for 7 years, finally found solace that night. At the morning court session, the king feigned illness, intending to entrust state affairs to the crown prince. However, this was met with opposition from the prime minister's faction, who insisted on obtaining approval from the King dynasty. The crown prince countered that the king's birthday was approaching, and during the king envoy's visit for the celebrations, he would secure their recognition and assume control of state affairs with the king emperor's blessing. Meanwhile, the crown prince summoned Ra'an to the East Palace. Eunuch Jang instructed her to clean the study, specifically warning her not to enter the crown prince's private study without permission, lest she face severe punishment. Upon entering, Ra'an found the crown prince reading. She urged him to leave, fearing discovery and punishment. But as she turned to go, the crown prince called her back. "Don't you want to know my name? It's Li Young." The crown prince had just revealed his identity to the little eunuch who constantly teased him. But Ra'an, slow to process this, burst out laughing, still unaware of the significance of the name Li Young. Touching the crown prince's clothing, she suddenly realized it was the legendary royal robe. She was about to laugh again when the reality of their location hit her. The scholar she had been teasing was the crown prince. Realization dawned, and Ra'an groveled at his feet, begging for forgiveness. The crown prince, looking at her cowering form, was frustrated but couldn't bring himself to be truly angry. He sat down and replaced her hat. "Damn it, we're friends, aren't we? Isn't that what you said? If not friends, what are we?" Returning to her room that evening, Ra'an replayed the moment she'd insulted the crown prince right to his face. He had the blood of both man and beast, she'd said, and didn't know when to bark and when not to, so he was a mad dog. Staring at a pillar, she wished she could just bang her head against it and be done with it. Kim, the guard, scoffed at her dazed expression. The next day, at the crown prince's quarters, Ra'an begged head eunuch Jang to reassign her. But the crown prince overheard from the doorway. While Ra'an helped him dress, he looked at her strangely. When she tried to place his hat on his head, he deliberately stretched his neck. Ra'an had to stand on tiptoe to reach, but he stretched further. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Kim was in discussion with others at his home. The king envoy was arriving soon. How could they sway him to their side and disrupt the crown prince's plans? Kim Yoon-sung, wanting no part in the power struggle, excused himself on the pretext of a business engagement. Another minister mentioned he'd met the envoy before, an eccentric man whose greatest love was money, coupled with a prodigious appetite. Rather than spending money to win him over, they should do nothing and let the crown prince waste his time hosting him. The two odd characters were bound to clash, and they would reap the benefits. Kim Yoon-sung, however, had entered the palace. Intending to find someone to carry his purchases, he ran into Ra'an in a fabric shop. While he browsed, Ra'an was captivated by an outfit in the corner. It brought back painful memories. As a child, any attempt to wear women's clothing had earned her a slap from her mother. She stared, lost in thought. Kim Yoon-sung, finished with his business, noticed her. As they were leaving, rain began to pour. He took Ra-on's hand and they ran for cover in a pavilion. Seeing her soaked clothes, he draped his newly purchased fabric over her head, then ventured back into the rain to buy an umbrella. At that moment, the crown prince, also seeking shelter from the downpour, entered the same pavilion. Neither noticed the other as they stood listening to the drumming rain. After the rain stopped, the crown prince sought out a reclusive scholar, asking for help against the prime minister. The scholar refused to involve himself in court politics. As the prince was leaving, the scholar advised, "Victory doesn't always require bloodshed. Sweet honey can also be poisonous. Why resort to poison?" To welcome the king envoy, the crown prince selected over 100 courtesans to perform at the palace. The ministers observing the rehearsals were quick to condemn this, accusing the prince of being infatuated with women and losing his mind. During the selection of the lead dancer, a beautiful and graceful courtesan kept making mistakes. The prince, losing his patience, was about to scold her when Ra-on signaled him to be encouraging instead. He followed her advice. This scene was witnessed by the queen consort, who sneered to a nearby minister, "If the crown prince takes the throne, I fear even courtesans will be added to our ancestral registry." That evening, back in his quarters, the crown prince instructed Ra-on to record all the dance steps to ensure the dancers practiced and avoided mistakes. She laughed, telling him she had a knack for remembering dances perfectly after seeing them only once, so there was no need to write them down. Unconvinced, the prince challenged her, and she sketched out 2 sections of the dance. Amazed, he opened his mouth to praise her, but saw she had fallen asleep. The next morning, Ra-on woke with a start to find herself in the crown prince's bed, while he was slumped over his desk. A pang of sympathy touched her as she looked at him sleeping soundly. The night of the banquet arrived. Everything was perfect, except the lead dancer was nervously applying her makeup. The queen consort had visited her the night before, threatening her family unless she left the palace moments before her performance. As the time for the dance approached, the dancer was nowhere to be found. Ra-on rushed to the dressing room, finding only the dancer's costume. To save the crown prince's efforts, Ra-on secretly took the costume. Letting down her hair, she began to apply makeup to herself. It was the first time she had adorned herself like this since childhood. But a pair of eyes outside the room witnessed everything. The banquet performance was about to begin, but the dancer was still missing. Kim Hun began to taunt the crown prince to the envoy seated beside him. The envoy, too, was displeased by the delay. Just then, adorned in the dancer's costume, Ra-on appeared on stage as the music began. Her movements were like a butterfly under the moonlight. After the banquet, the crown prince searched everywhere for her. He wanted to know who the masked dancer was. But Ra-on had already fled barefoot, ignoring the stones that cut her feet. The crown prince spotted her, but just as he was about to give chase, a hand reached out from the bushes and pulled her away. Seeing Ra-on's disguise about to be compromised, Kim Yoon-sung dragged her into the darkness. Unable to find her, the crown prince returned to his quarters. It was then that Ra-on realized Kim Yoon-sung had known all along she was disguised as a man. Back in his quarters, the crown prince recalled how the dancer had known all the steps. Ra-on had also claimed she could memorize a dance after seeing it only once, and now she was nowhere to be found. He immediately sent people to search for her. Meanwhile, as Ra-on was trying to return to the palace, Kim Yoon-sung noticed her injured foot. He tore a piece of his clothing to bandage the wound. Back at the palace, Kim Yoon-sung was about to return Ra-on's clothing when he encountered the crown prince searching for her. Quickly, he covered for her, telling the prince that Ra-on had already returned to the East Palace. When the crown prince arrived, Ra-on was waiting in his room. He asked when she had returned. She lied, saying she'd hurried back after leaving him to help organize his sheet music. Seeing the ink stains on her hands, he believed her. The next day, Ra-on was organizing documents in the library when she sneezed, covering her nose in the same way the dancer had. The crown prince noticed and asked her to do it again. Ra-on feigned ignorance, but the prince grew more convinced. Suddenly, Ra-on asked the crown prince, "For the Mid-Autumn Festival, is there any way I could take leave? I want to see the lanterns." The crown prince touched her face, then flicked her forehead. Ra-on reacted with a confused expression. He scolded her, "You're burning up with fever and you want to go out." He ordered her not to leave the East Palace, threatening punishment if she disobeyed. However, the ever-restless Ra-on soon found herself on a boat with the princess, invited for tea. The princess inquired about the recipient of her secret love letters. As they chatted, the crown prince spotted them. Noticing Ra-on's pale face, the princess suggested she return to the palace. Just then, the boat rocked violently. Ra-on lost her balance and fell into the lake. Everyone froze. The crown prince instantly jumped in to save her. The eunuchs, reacting a moment later, followed suit. Finding Ra-on, the prince pulled her to the surface. This scene was witnessed by Kim Yoon-sung, who happened to be passing by. Back on shore, head eunuch Jang scolded Ra-on for her recklessness, endangering his highness. Ra-on knelt, unsure what to do. Seeing her shivering, the prince offered his cloak, but eunuch Jang intervened. The prince, realizing the impropriety, simply told Ra-on to return and rest. As she reached the gate, Kim Yoon-sung draped a blanket over her. After thanking him, Ra-on turned to leave. Kim Yoon-sung, assuming her coolness was due to him having discovered her secret, quickly said, "Then I'll share the burden of your secret. Is that not enough? Now you have someone to lean on. Is that still not enough?" Meanwhile, the king envoy sent a message. The tribute demanded had been doubled from the previous month. The prime minister argued that this was because the crown prince was now in charge. The king wanted to compromise, but the crown prince immediately refused. "If we turn a blind eye this time," he argued, "they will surely gouge out our eyes next time. I cannot obey such a command." During the Mid-Autumn Lantern Festival, a mother and daughter were fleeing from pursuing soldiers. Seeing the soldiers closing in, the mother suggested playing hide and seek. The little girl readily agreed. As her mother counted, the girl hid under a table. The mother then drew the soldiers' attention and began to run through the bustling streets. Tears welled up in the girl's eyes as she watched her mother being chased. Realizing she might never see her mother again, Ra-on cried out for her in her sleep, filled with longing. The crown prince witnessed the entire scene. He reached out to comfort her, but she grabbed the corner of his robe. Startled awake, Ra-on, mistaking the crown prince for her protector, Kim Byung-yeon, recounted her dream of being separated from her mother. The crown prince consoled her. The next morning, Ra-on went to the crown prince's study, but he insisted she return to her quarters, saying she hadn't fully recovered. Ra-on, believing he was afraid of catching her illness, pouted, "I'm as strong as an ox now, thanks to my Kim Hyung who took care of me all night." "Your Kim Hyung?" "Yes, my Kim Hyung isn't like someone cough who's afraid of catching a cold." Infuriated, the crown prince told Ra-on to follow him. Ra-on defiantly refused. As the crown prince stepped forward, seemingly to reprimand her, Ra-on faked a cough. The crown prince immediately shoved medicine into her mouth. "What is this?" "Chew and swallow. 10 times more effective than your Kim Hyung." He then turned and stormed off. As Ra-on left, head eunuch Jang approached her. The crown prince had given her leave to go out and enjoy herself. Kim Yoon-sung arrived and invited her to release sky lanterns with him that evening. Happy to have company, Ra-on accepted. However, as the appointed time neared, Kim Yoon-sung was detained by unexpected guests. Ra-on waited on the street for him until nightfall. Among the passers-by, she thought she saw her mother running towards her, but it turned out to be the crown prince. He approached slowly, their eyes meeting. Fireworks erupted over the bridge. After teasing Ra-on, the crown prince grabbed her by the scruff of her neck and dragged her away, beginning their first unofficial date. As they enjoyed themselves, Kim Yoon-sung finally arrived. After searching, he spotted Ra-on, a smile on her face as she released a sky lantern, but he also saw the crown prince beside her. As the lantern floated upwards, Ra-on saw the crown prince's wish written on it, that she would find her mother soon. "Is that your highness's wish?" "Yes, this is my wish. For some reason, you resemble someone, another person, a woman." Ra-on was unsure how to respond. Just then, Kim Yoon-sung arrived. He told the crown prince that he had a prior engagement with Ra-on. Kim Yoon-sung looked at Ra-on, wanting to take her away. Not knowing what to do, Ra-on apologized to the crown prince and turned to leave. The crown prince grabbed her hand. The crown prince, over a mere eunuch, nearly confronted the prime minister's son. As the two men faced off, a group of courtesans approached. They recognized Kim Yoon-sung and the crown prince, recalling a past love letter. The crown prince's expression changed when he saw the courtesans teasing Ra-on. Ra-on quickly played along, embracing a courtesan and suggesting they all join in the festivities nearby. The crown prince's face darkened. He told them to go ahead and angrily turned away. As Ra-on and Kim Yoon-sung returned to the palace, they encountered guards pursuing a thief. Kim Yoon-sung quickly pulled Ra-on aside. The guards began shooting arrows. Though the thief evaded them, his mask was struck and fell off. Ra-on caught a glimpse of the thief's face. Before she could react, he leaped away, leaving behind half of his mask. Upon Ra-on's return, Kim Byung-yeon was tending to a wound. Ra-on simply greeted him, not revealing what she had seen. It turned out that Kim Byung-yeon had been secretly investigating smuggling records between Qing dynasty envoys and local merchants on the crown prince's orders. He had lost his mask at the scene. After analyzing the situation, the prime minister concluded that the thief was likely connected to the rebel group that had attempted to assassinate him months earlier. The next morning, as Ra-on was helping the crown prince dress, he pushed her away. He expressed his disappointment that she had gone to the Sky Pavilion with Kim Yoon-sung the previous night. He told Ra-on that he didn't want to be mistaken for someone else. He then summoned head eunuch Jang and ordered him to restrict Ra-on's movements. Due to a shortage of staff in the main hall, eunuch Jang came to the East Palace to borrow some. He intended to protect Ra-on, but the crown prince appeared suddenly and ordered Ra-on to be transferred elsewhere. The crown prince then loudly declared that he needed no one besides eunuch Jang, deeply hurting Ra-on. However, the crown prince quickly began to regret his actions and his harsh words. He imagined Ra-on standing before him. While reading, he found the drawing she had made in his book. Ra-on's goofy expressions kept flashing through his mind. Recalling their shared moments, a smile unconsciously crept onto the crown prince's lips. The next day, he sought out the royal physician to inquire about his ailment. After the diagnosis, the physician concluded the crown prince was suffering from lovesickness. It was clear he had fallen for someone he shouldn't have, leading to his current state. Although the crown prince knew this deep down, he felt ashamed. Therefore, he immediately dismissed the royal physician. Meanwhile, the prime minister was entertaining the Qing dynasty envoy. When the topic of hobbies arose, the envoy shamelessly requested a dancing girl for that evening to enjoy the night scenery. This request was overheard by eunuch Li, who had been eavesdropping outside the previous night. He secretly reported this to the crown prince. Later, taking advantage of his night shift, eunuch Li tricked Ra-on into the envoy's room. When the envoy approached her with ill intentions, she pushed him away. Enraged, he slapped her across the face. He then threatened her, boasting that even the crown prince had to heed his words to ascend the throne. The envoy intended to use this to coerce her into submission. In her panic, Ra-on pushed him to the ground. The envoy furiously got up, intending to strike her again. At that moment, the door burst open. The crown prince rushed in and kicked the envoy away with a single blow. He then pulled Ra-on around and left. Upon hearing this, the king was both furious and frustrated. The queen consort feigned concern at his side, but inwardly she rejoiced. Once the crown prince reached a secluded spot with Ra-on, he immediately scolded her loudly. "Don't you know the dangers? How dare you go anywhere and everywhere?" Ra-on felt deeply wronged. As a lowly eunuch, she had no control over where she went. While they were still reeling from the events, a group of royal guards arrived. Following the king's orders, they arrested Ra-on and imprisoned her. Early the next morning, the crown prince knelt before the main hall, pleading with his father to pardon Ra-on. However, this only fueled the king's anger. The king subsequently confined the crown prince to the East Palace, forbidding him from leaving his quarters. Meanwhile, Kim Yoon-sung also received the news. He sought out eunuch Li, the one who had revealed Ra-on's identity. He then drew his pistol and warned him, if he ever dared to do anything that harmed Ra-on, the next bullet would be aimed at him. Ra-on learned from her close friend that the crown prince might be stripped of his title because of her. She was overwhelmed with guilt. That night, the crown prince secretly snuck into the prison to see her. He wanted her to promise him one thing: no matter what happened, she should always look out for herself and endure. Meanwhile, the envoy, furious at his inability to retaliate against the crown prince, demanded to take Ra-on back to his country. Upon hearing this, Kim Yoon-sung immediately objected, but was stopped by the minister beside him. Seeing no other option, he rushed to find Royal Guard Kim. Kim Yoon-sung showed him a map of the envoy's return route. "Will you be all right doing this? As long as she can return safely, that's all that matters." The crown prince, in love with his eunuch, found his affection challenged by the King Dynasty envoy. The envoy, using the throne as leverage, intended to take Ra-on thousands of miles away to his homeland. Upon reaching a forest, the envoy ordered a rest stop. He then secretly led his entourage into the woods to sell smuggled goods, pocketing the gold and silver. As they were making their transaction, the crown prince and royal guard Kim emerged. The envoy ordered his men to seize them. However, the escort was quickly overpowered by the crown prince and royal guard Kim. The envoy attempted to use his status to threaten them, but at that moment, the crown prince summoned the King Dynasty's censorate. It turned out that after learning the envoy's route from Kim Yoon-sung, royal guard Kim had obtained records of the envoy's smuggling activities with wealthy merchants. The crown prince found Ra-on tied to a tree. He slowly approached, crouched down, and gently untied her. At that moment, royal guard Kim arrived on horseback. The crown prince helped her onto the horse, then held her in his arms as they returned to the palace. Before going to sleep, Ra-on thanked royal guard Kim. She mentioned the time she had a fever and he had cared for her all night. However, royal guard Kim denied ever having cared for her. Ra-on then recalled the Mid-Autumn Festival lantern release and wondered how the crown prince had known her wish. She now realized that it was the crown prince who had cared for her that night. The next morning, wanting her to have some nourishing food, the crown prince asked her to test his meal. Seeing her enjoy it, he took a bite himself, then spat it out, claiming it was too salty. Ra-on ended up eating the entire portion. While strolling outside, they saw eunuch Jang fighting with someone. The crown prince immediately ordered them to stop. He then asked eunuch Jang what had happened. He kept his mouth tightly shut, refusing to speak. Under the crown prince's pressure, he finally tearfully revealed the truth. They were saying that His Highness preferred men. How could they utter such disrespectful nonsense? All right, I thought it was something serious. You resorted to violence over mere jokes? They claimed the way the crown prince looked at Ra-on was like gazing affectionately at a young lover. The servant feared this would tarnish the crown prince's reputation and affect his future reign, so he couldn't hold back. He deserved to die for his transgression. Hearing this, the crown prince wore an exasperated expression. Ra-on quickly lowered her head. The following day, the minister's daughter approached the crown prince in the garden. However, the crown prince, already having someone in his heart, showed no interest in her. But Ra-on witnessed their exchange. The difference in their social standing inevitably made her feel insecure. Meanwhile, Kim Yoon-sung also saw Ra-on. He gave her an elegant outfit he had purchased while shopping with her. He wanted Ra-on to leave the palace, shed her eunuch identity, and live as a woman again. However, Ra-on refused. Kim Yoon-sung stood up and told her, "Don't rush your answer. Think it over carefully and tell me later." Because rumors about the crown prince and Ra-on had spread throughout the palace, even the queen consort had heard them. To ascertain Ra-on's true gender, she ordered her to be brought in. But just as Ra-on was taken away, the crown prince arrived. He tried to take Ra-on with him, but the queen consort claimed Ra-on was bewitching the crown prince and disrupting the court. She declared she would personally teach Ra-on proper palace conduct on his behalf. The crown prince gritted his teeth in frustration, but could do nothing except offer a sarcastic laugh. He said, "I am a prince who avoids romantic entanglements, yet all sorts of false rumors circulate the palace every day." After the crown prince took Ra-on away, the queen consort's face darkened. She said to the eunuch beside her, "That wasn't the look one gives a man, but the look a man gives his lover." After the previous night's events, to avoid causing further trouble for the crown prince, Ra-on deliberately distanced herself from him. Noticing this, the crown prince assumed he had done something to upset her. He immediately tried to appease her. But she said, "I'm just a eunuch. Your Highness shouldn't treat me so well. We can't be friends, nor can we have any other kind of relationship." That evening, after returning to his chambers, the Crown Prince replayed Ra-on's words from earlier in the day, his heart a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Though he knew perfectly well that, as Crown Prince, he absolutely could not fall for a eunuch, he couldn't help the affection he felt for Ra-on. Driven by these feelings, he poured his heart out in a letter to her. However, when he went to find Ra-on, the Crown Prince stumbled upon an unbelievable scene. It turned out that, upon returning to her room, Ra-on had come to understand her own feelings. She had taken out the clothes Kim Yoon-sung had given her and was about to try them on when the Crown Prince arrived with his love letter. Seeing the beautiful young woman before him, the Crown Prince realized that the person he had been longing for day and night was Ra-on, the one who had always been by his side. Relieved that his perceived confusion about his sexuality wasn't an issue after all, the Crown Prince was overjoyed. Later, the Crown Prince asked Ra-on to meet him in the royal garden. He drew her close and earnestly confessed his love. But Ra-on quickly pulled her hand away. Panicked, she told the Crown Prince that she was only a eunuch and that they couldn't possibly be together. "I want to try this forbidden love, just once," he declared, increasing Ra-on's alarm. Could it be that the Crown Prince truly preferred men, as the rumors suggested? Ignoring her protests, the Crown Prince embraced Ra-on. Even after his confession, Ra-on still believed he was attracted to men. She immediately asked the Crown Prince's guard, Kim, if the prince had ever pursued a woman. Upon hearing Kim confirm that he hadn't, Ra-on became even more distraught. The next day, Ra-on was holding a parasol over the Crown Prince. The parasol was heavy, and she struggled to keep it steady. The Crown Prince, seeing her difficulty, offered to take it, but Ra-on immediately refused. "If I can't even do this, I don't deserve to be called a man." The Crown Prince suppressed a smile. He sternly told her, "Hold the parasol steady." Then, the Crown Prince instructed her to place the parasol on the lawn, effectively blocking anyone from approaching. Under the shade of the parasol, the Crown Prince began to tease Ra-on. He took her hand and said playfully, "So rough, just like a man's hand. Indeed, your eyes, your nose, even your mouth, they all belong to a man. Undeniably handsome. I'm captivated by your masculine charm." Ra-on, startled, urged the Crown Prince to stop his nonsensical talk. Having been introduced by the princess, the minister's daughter came to see Ra-on that day, seeking advice on how to pursue a man. Unaware that the man Ha-yeon was interested in was the Crown Prince, Ra-on wholeheartedly shared her man-charming techniques. Meanwhile, the relationship between Ra-on and the Crown Prince grew closer. The Crown Prince successfully assumed his duties in court, but on his first day, the main hall was empty. It turned out that the officials, all loyal to the Prime Minister, had feigned illness. This was a blatant show of power, a challenge to the Crown Prince's authority, who truly held the reins of power in this kingdom. Frustrated, the Crown Prince retreated to his study to read. Ra-on brought him sweets, but he remained sullen. She encouraged him to eat, saying, "When you're upset, you should eat something to settle your mind." Seeing Ra-on improved his mood somewhat. He asked her, "What should I do if I encounter a formidable opponent?" Ra-on replied, "If it's an opponent you need to fight, shouldn't you try your best to fight? And if you try your best but still can't win, then you can only accept the natural course of things." After hearing her words, the Crown Prince picked up a sweet. Then he pulled Ra-on into his arms. Flustered, she tried to pull away. Just as she was about to speak, he popped the sweet into her mouth. Later, the Crown Prince instructed Ra-on to summon the royal physician and prepare individual packets of medicine for each of the ailing officials, which he personally delivered to the Prime Minister's residence. After negotiations, the Prime Minister finally relented and agreed to help the Crown Prince restore order to the court. With the matter resolved, the Crown Prince's spirits lifted considerably. That day, he went for a stroll through the marketplace. He came across a peculiar old man selling fate bracelets. Intrigued, the Crown Prince reached for one. At the same moment, another hand grasped the same bracelet. The Crown Prince turned to see who it was. It was the minister's daughter, Ha-yeon, who had been secretly admiring him. Seeing the Crown Prince, she quickly released the bracelet. Just as he was about to scold her, he saw the royal guard Kim being chased by a group of people. The crown prince suddenly remembered Kim saying the previous night that he had to go train the troops. Sensing something was amiss, he gave chase. By the time he and Ha-yeon arrived, a fierce fight was underway. Before he could intervene, another group arrived and surrounded the three of them. The crown prince shielded Ha-yeon, then joined forces with royal guard Kim, fighting off their attackers until they scattered. Afterward, he noticed a mask lying on the ground. It became clear that Kim wasn't simply the crown prince's subordinate. Someone else was giving him orders. Meanwhile, the search was on for the daughter of the rebel leader from years past, and Kim had also received secret orders to investigate this matter. During his search, he discovered that the rebel's daughter was named Ra-on. He then located Ra-on's former foster father. After introducing himself, the foster father revealed that Ra-on had changed her name to Sam-nam and had been sold into the palace. On their way back to the palace, Kim asked the crown prince why he hadn't inquired about the day's events. The crown prince replied, "In this world, if I can trust only one person, that person is you." That evening, after returning to the palace, Ha-yeon presented the crown prince with a gift she had embroidered herself, expressing her gratitude for his help earlier that day. The next morning, the crown prince left early. Ra-on came downstairs to greet him, but he didn't even look up. She followed him and witnessed him returning Ha-yeon's gift. Misinterpreting the situation, Ra-on believed the crown prince was interested in Ha-yeon. Looking at her eunuch attire and then at the elegantly dressed Ha-yeon, Ra-on felt a pang of insecurity. That night, she sought out the crown prince. She asked him if he liked any woman. The crown prince gazed at Ra-on affectionately and told her that he liked a very beautiful girl. Assuming he meant Ha-yeon, Ra-on questioned him. "Then why do you treat me this way? Why do you keep saying you like me, worrying about me, getting angry with me, making me overthink everything?" With that, Ra-on turned and left, leaving the crown prince bewildered. He didn't understand where he had gone wrong. The following day, the crown prince went to find Ra-on. He took her hand and fastened a bracelet around her wrist. "What is this?" she asked. "It's the most fitting adornment for a beautiful girl," he replied. "What?" she asked again. "I said, I like a beautiful girl," the crown prince declared, finally revealing her true identity to her and confessing his love. Deeply moved, Ra-on was still hesitant to accept his confession. She believed she couldn't engage in such a relationship in a place where she didn't belong. Consequently, she began to distance herself from the crown prince. Meanwhile, having learned Ra-on's true identity, Kim was deeply troubled. Unable to confide in anyone, he channeled his emotions into martial arts practice. Later that night, back at his quarters, he questioned Ra-on about her past, discovering that she didn't know who her real father was. The next day, Ra-on decided to leave the crown prince. She sought out the head eunuch, requesting to leave the East Palace, but was refused. She then went to see the princess, bringing her writing materials. The princess was playing hide and seek, so Ra-on told her to hide first and then sat alone under a tree to wait. At that moment, the crown prince arrived, having learned from the head eunuch of Ra-on's desire to leave. He asked her why she wanted to leave him. Ra-on explained that she was a woman disguised as a man, disrupting the order of the palace. If he didn't see her as a eunuch, how could she possibly stay by his side? The crown prince was about to respond when a court lady informed them that the princess was missing. The entire palace searched from morning till night, and it was Ra-on who finally found her in a storage room. Ra-on asked the crown prince to meet her in the library, where she returned the bracelet. "Do you want to leave the palace? To run away? To leave me? Is this your final request?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "I understand," he said. After Ra-on left, the crown prince stared at the returned bracelet, his heart aching. The following day, Ra-on visited the princess, asking her what had happened the previous night. The princess hesitated, unwilling to answer, and initially ignored Ra-on. Ra-on then confided in the princess about the difficult situation she was in. The princess's eyes widened as she listened. She then took out her notebook and wrote down what she wanted to say to Ra-on. "Eunuch Hong once asked me when I would open the door to my heart and come out." Ra-on saw the tears welling up in the princess's eyes. That evening, the princess led Ra-on to an empty field and then ran off. Turning around, Ra-on saw the crown prince watching her. She quickly bowed her head, wanting to leave. At that moment, the crown prince extended his hand towards her. using the sign language Ra-on had taught the princess, which the princess, in turn, had taught him. I like you. No, it's more than that, I adore you. Eunuch Hong, if I wanted to say don't go, what gesture should I use? Like this? So, stay by my side. Tears welled up in Ra-on's eyes as she looked at the crown prince before her. Head Eunuch Jang asked the crown prince what he was doing. This means you should get lost. Yes, your highness. After returning to her quarters, Ra-on took out the clothes Kim Yoon-sung had given her. Changing into women's attire, she went to the flower garden to find the crown prince. How should I address you, Hong Ra-on? After revealing her true identity to the crown prince, the two began a sweet romance. In the mornings, while dressing the crown prince, even before the eunuch had called him to wake, Ra-on would call out to him. As she dressed him, he would repeat her name, Ra-on, Ra-on, incessantly. Fearing others might hear, Ra-on told him to stop. The crown prince lowered his head and whispered, I couldn't call your name before, so I'm making up for it now. Yes, your highness. When it came time to put on his hat, seeing that Ra-on couldn't reach, the crown prince bent down, bringing their faces close. Seeing him standing there foolishly, Ra-on smiled brightly. Even at night, before going to sleep, he would lie with his head in her lap, insisting she tell him stories until he drifted off. But their happiness was short-lived. Hong Kyung-rae's rebel forces began to cause unrest throughout the land. The incompetent king, who had starved his people, became the target of their uprising, much to his surprise. To appease the populace, he urged the crown prince to marry quickly, hoping to use the occasion to quell the unrest. The king's chosen bride was the daughter of Minister Ha-yeon. The prime minister, also seeking to consolidate his power, wanted Kim Yoon-sung to marry Ha-yeon as well. The two men arranged a meeting to discuss their strategies. Meanwhile, the crown prince, still unaware of these developments, remained lost in his love for Ra-on. When the king summoned him and revealed his decision, the crown prince was deeply agitated. After so much effort to find his love, he was now being told to marry another. He could tolerate many things, but not this. The crown prince immediately protested this preposterous idea, telling the king he would find his own way to resolve the crisis. That night, the crown prince carried Ra-on on his back through the quiet gardens. Together they contemplated their future, a moment of unparalleled happiness for Ra-on. But the following day, Ra-on learned from head eunuch Ma about the crown prince's impending wedding. Stunned, she sat alone beneath a tree, replaying the previous night's events in her mind, her heart aching with pain. Yoon-sung found Ra-on weeping under the tree and approached her. Her sorrow pained him. He had intended to feign ignorance, but her heartbroken expression gave her away. Ra-on's grief was overwhelming. Witnessing her pain, Yoon-sung sought out the crown prince, telling him that if he couldn't bring Ra-on happiness, he certainly wouldn't stand idly by. Meanwhile, Royal Guard Kim had been summoned by the person behind the unrest. Upon arriving, he was ambushed. The mastermind had discovered that Royal Guard Kim knew Ra-on's true identity and, suspecting treason, had ordered his elimination. Just then, a man wearing a hat intervened, stopping the attack. Royal Guard Kim looked up. It was the Lord Chamberlain, the same man who had saved him years ago. The Lord Chamberlain declared that at a gathering in a few days' time, with everyone present, he would personally bring Ra-on forth. As for the crown prince, he found Ra-on and told her he had found a way for her to stand by his side as his rightful love. When Ra-on asked how, he refused to elaborate, saying only, "Come with me tomorrow to meet someone." The next day, Ra-on prepared early to depart with the crown prince, but before he arrived, the Lord Chamberlain came looking for her, even addressing her by name. Ra-on was startled. Just then, the crown prince appeared and questioned the Lord Chamberlain about how he knew Ra-on's name. Thinking back, the Lord Chamberlain explained to the crown prince that he owed a debt to Ra-on's mother and had promised to care for her daughter. Unfortunately, Ra-on had been lost as a child. He had only recently recognized her. The crown prince, in turn, asked the Lord Chamberlain to look after Ra-on, to which he readily agreed. Ha-yeon once again sought out the crown prince to confess her feelings, but he told her he already had someone in his heart. Before Ha-yeon could ask who, head eunuch Jang rushed in, flustered, informing the crown prince that Ra-on had been taken by the queen dowager. Earlier that day, during the king's meal, a food taster had discovered poison in his food. Furious, the king ordered a thorough search of the harem. A servant working for the Queen Dowager discovered women's clothing in Ra-on's room and immediately reported it. Upon learning this, the Queen Dowager decided to teach the Crown Prince a lesson. She ordered Ra-on's arrest and demanded she be searched. Ra-on was terrified. At that moment, the Crown Prince arrived, demanding to know why the Queen Dowager was harassing Ra-on. The Queen Dowager lifted Ra-on's chin, remarking with a strange expression that she looked like a girl. The Crown Prince, losing his patience, told her to take her hands off Ra-on. The Queen Dowager then produced the women's clothing found in Ra-on's belongings and scolded her, ordering her to undress for the examination. Ra-on's face was a picture of innocence. Unexpectedly, the Crown Prince also scolded Ra-on, ordering her to obey the Queen Dowager and undress to prove her innocence. Everyone was taken aback. The Queen Dowager felt tricked and grew even angrier. Determined to assert her authority, she moved to tear Ra-on's clothes off. Just then, the Lord Chamberlain appeared. He informed the Queen Dowager that Ra-on was a eunuch who had already been inspected by the Department of the Royal Household. He implored her to act appropriately, urging her not to let a moment of anger compromise her dignity. She shouldn't be stripping a man in front of everyone. Hearing this, the Queen Dowager reluctantly backed down. Back in his room, the Crown Prince watched Ra-on sleeping soundly after her ordeal, filled with guilt. Royal Guard Kim entered, inquiring about what had happened. The Crown Prince didn't reply, only murmuring to himself, "I just want to cherish her and keep her by my side, but I don't know why things that make me feel so guilty keep happening." The next morning, as Ra-on stepped outside, she encountered Master Jan asking for directions. They looked at each other closely, immediately recognizing one another. Master Jan was the one who had taken in Ra-on and her mother when she was young. After Ra-on's father's failed rebellion, soldiers had hunted them relentlessly. Master Jan had risked his life to hide and save them. As they reminisced, the Crown Prince arrived, curious about their acquaintance. After some conversation, he realized they were all connected. Ra-on asked Master Jan for news of her mother, but he had no definitive answers. That evening, the king visited the Crown Prince again, urging him to proceed with a royal wedding. Gaining the minister's support would stabilize the people and strengthen his position in the court. The next day, the Crown Prince sought out Master Jan. He was the one who held the key to allowing Ra-on to stay by his side. However, after seeing Ra-on again, Master Jan told the Crown Prince that she was not the one for him and urged them to end their relationship. Back at the palace, the Crown Prince, haunted by Master Jan's warning, couldn't sleep. The following day, he returned to Master Jan, asking him to find Ra-on's mother. Jan warned him that if mother and daughter remained separated, they might still have a chance. Reuniting them could put the Crown Prince in danger. Despite the warning, the Crown Prince remained resolute. Master Jan relented and summoned Ra-on's mother. Mother and daughter, reunited after so many years, tearfully rushed towards each other and embraced. The Crown Prince and Master Jan, moved by the scene, wept as well. It turned out that after losing her daughter, Ra-on's mother had been under the protection of Master Jan all along. For over a decade, she had hidden in the shadows, afraid to reveal herself. Ra-on took her mother to meet the Crown Prince. He assured them that he would soon obtain a pass allowing Ra-on to leave the palace so they could meet whenever they pleased. After returning to the palace, heavy rain suddenly poured down. Ra-on started to fetch an umbrella, but the Crown Prince called her back. He took her hand, and they walked together in the rain, their feet treading on the green grass like newly enamored lovers. Elsewhere, Royal Guard Kim, under orders from the chief eunuch, secretly placed a ledger detailing Prime Minister Kim's corruption and selling of government positions on the Crown Prince's desk. Upon seeing the ledger, the Crown Prince summoned the Prime Minister's faction and the Chief State Councillor to the palace. He immediately accused the councillor of corruption. The councillor attempted to deny the charges, but the Crown Prince presented irrefutable evidence of his embezzlement. He then promptly dismissed him from office. Returning to the Kim residence, the disgraced councillor strategized with the Prime Minister. At that moment, a spy arrived with crucial information. The daughter of the rebel leader, Zon, was currently hiding within the royal palace. The next day, Kim Yoon-sung went to the Crown Prince's study to speak with him. but instead found the Crown Prince and Ra-on lying on a table, deep in conversation. "What were you dreaming about?" the Crown Prince asked. "I dreamt your highness kept calling my name, Ra-on, Ra-on." Kim Yoon-sung overheard these words. Recalling the spy's report from the previous night, he was taken aback. Just after leaving the palace the night before, he had encountered the Kim family's spy again. The spy informed him that he had discovered Ra-on's true identity and was about to report back to the Prime Minister. After the spy left, Kim Yoon-sung pondered for a moment, then stealthily followed him. He lured the spy closer, feigning a secret message. When the spy was within reach, Kim Yoon-sung swiftly silenced him. He then retrieved the confidential report from the spy's person, which read, "Ra-on, disguised as Sam Nam, is hiding in the palace." Kim Yoon-sung immediately sought out the Crown Prince. He attempted to inform him of this discovery, but the Crown Prince refused to listen. Feeling powerless, Kim Yoon-sung left. Meanwhile, the dismissed Chief State Councilor, seeking revenge against the Crown Prince, sent a group of assassins disguised as members of the Red Guard, wearing ghost masks, into the palace. He also instructed his men to dress as palace guards and stand watch. Hearing a commotion outside, the Crown Prince sensed something was amiss and went to investigate. As he opened the door, he witnessed Ra-on being seized by men in black. The assassins, holding Ra-on captive, forced the Crown Prince to retreat. Prioritizing Ra-on's safety, the Crown Prince discarded his weapon, willing to trade himself for her. Upon leaving the East Palace, Kim Yoon-sung noticed blood on the hands of a palace guard. Just as he realized something was wrong, the guard attacked him. Fortunately, Kim Yoon-sung's superior martial arts skills allowed him to quickly dispatch the two guards. As the Crown Prince reached for Ra-on's hand, the assassins lunged at him with their blades. Suddenly, Kim Yoon-sung burst into the room. A fierce battle ensued between the two men and the assassins. One assassin thrust his sword towards the Crown Prince, who was unable to dodge. Kim Yoon-sung intercepted the blade with his bare hand. While everyone was stunned, Ra-on quickly tossed a weapon to the Crown Prince. The fight resumed. Despite their impressive skills, the two were outnumbered. Eventually, the Crown Prince was wounded. In the chaos, he looked up at the man wearing the ghost mask, and it seemed as if Royal Guard Kim was standing before him. "Is that you?" The masked man raised his sword to strike the Crown Prince. At that moment, he was suddenly stabbed through the abdomen. Royal Guard Kim rushed in. After a few hurried words, he chased after the attacker. The Crown Prince collapsed in a pool of blood. Upon learning of the incident, the king was terrified. He immediately summoned the Prime Minister to the palace, seeking a solution. However, the Prime Minister was well aware of his subordinates' actions. He advised the king to keep the matter quiet, preventing it from spreading beyond the palace walls. Otherwise, it would surely cause unrest among the people. The Prime Minister assured the king that he would handle the situation. After returning to the Kim residence, the Prime Minister asked the Chief State Councilor if he had cleaned up the mess. The councilor confidently assured him that all traces had been erased. However, upon leaving, he discussed with his accomplice the need to eliminate the escaped assassin. The Crown Prince, severely injured, was ordered by the king to recuperate at Joseon Palace. He forbade any visitors. Worried about him, Ra-on stood outside his door. She attempted to inquire about his condition from the royal physician, but was brusquely pushed aside. Upon waking, the Crown Prince's first thought was of Ra-on. As she sat alone and despondent in the East Palace, he embraced her from behind. "Without my permission, no one can take away your happiness. So, don't cry. I will never let you go." Having faced this ordeal together, the young lovers found solace in each other's company. 2 months later, the Crown Prince fully recovered. Ra-on wished to visit her mother outside the palace. The Crown Prince gave her various instructions, urging her to return before sunset. Ra-on happily agreed. The Crown Prince was deeply in love with his eunuch, unaware of her true identity as the daughter of a rebel. While visiting her mother, Ra-on inadvertently learned the truth. Concerned for her safety, her mother urged her to flee with her. However, Ra-on tearfully insisted on staying, explaining that the Crown Prince was waiting for her in the palace. That evening, the Crown Prince waited for Ra-on outside her quarters for a long time. Finally, he heard her voice. He turned, a look of playful annoyance on his face, and walked towards her. After some gentle teasing, he embraced her. The following day, Ra-on busied herself with tasks in the East Palace, as if possessed. She expressed her desire to spend the entire day with the Crown Prince, who, unaware of the impending events, happily agreed. Meanwhile, the escaped assassin had been captured by the royal guards. As the chief state counselor discussed strategies with his accomplice, the prime minister overheard their conversation. After reprimanding them, he immediately took the prisoner for interrogation. By the time the Crown Prince arrived, the assassin had been tortured to the brink of death. Before the Crown Prince could question him, the assassin blamed everything on the Bikun Society. Seizing the opportunity, the Prime Minister inquired whether they had an inside accomplice. The assassin confessed, revealing that the daughter of the rebel leader, Hong Kyung-rae, was hiding in the palace, plotting an uprising. Just as the assassin was about to reveal her name, he was silenced by a man who appeared out of nowhere. Everyone was shocked to discover that the man was the Prime Minister. Upon learning of this, the king summoned the Prime Minister and questioned his actions. The Prime Minister boldly declared that he had discovered the identity of the palace insider. He then presented a memorial to the king. Unfolding it, the king saw Ra-on's name written upon it. Returning to his quarters, the Prime Minister urged Royal Guard Kim to arrest Ra-on under the pretense of her involvement with the Bikun Society, ostensibly to protect her. Unable to bear the thought of Ra-on's suffering, Royal Guard Kim sought out Kim Yoon-sung, urging him to help Ra-on escape the palace. Meanwhile, Ra-on seemed to have foreseen this day. She remained awake all night, kneeling before the Crown Prince. Noticing her lack of sleep, he questioned her, but she remained silent. She rose, approached his bed, and gazed at him with deep affection. The Crown Prince pulled her onto the bed, looking at her lovingly until he fell asleep. As Ra-on watched him sleep, tears streamed down her face. She leaned in, gently kissing his cheek, her hand caressing his familiar features. She wept silently. The next morning, when the Crown Prince awoke, Ra-on was gone. He asked Jang the eunuch, "Where is Ra-on?" Jang informed him that she had left the East Palace the previous night. Stepping outside, the Crown Prince saw a flurry of activity as guards searched the palace grounds. The chief state counselor informed him that they were searching for the rebel leader's daughter, Hong Ra-on. The news struck the Crown Prince like a thunderbolt. He rushed to Ra-on's lodgings. Upon arriving, he discovered her official uniform neatly folded on the bed. The bracelet he had given her was also there. Ra-on's identity as the daughter of a rebel had been exposed. She was apprehended by the guards while trying to escape the city. Fortunately, Kim Yoon-sung appeared just in time. He lied, claiming Ra-on was with him, thus saving her from certain punishment. The Crown Prince was heartbroken by Ra-on's departure. During court, he argued with the officials over tax collection, but was pressured by Prime Minister Kim's faction. After court adjourned, the newly appointed scholar, Master Young, approached the prince. He revealed his findings that the assassin's family had been murdered by the Prime Minister. Holding a gold bar bearing the mark of the magistrate's office, which had been recklessly spent at a gambling house, the Crown Prince immediately deduced the magistrate's involvement in the East Palace assassination attempt. The Crown Prince sought out Kim Yoon-sung, hoping to learn Ra-on's whereabouts, but was refused. That evening, Ra-on had successfully escaped the city. Sitting outside her room, gazing at the moon, she recalled moon gazing with the prince in the palace. She felt an overwhelming sadness. Elsewhere, Eunuch Ma, serving the royal consort, visited the magistrate, informing him of the disappearance of the Crown Prince's close eunuch. Furthermore, women's clothing had been found in the eunuch's quarters not long ago. This prompted the magistrate to hatch another plan. He approached the Crown Prince, intending to use this information to threaten him, but the prince countered by mentioning the gold bar. Returning to discuss countermeasures with his allies, the magistrate was overheard by the returning Prime Minister. The Prime Minister told them not to panic as he had discovered that Ra-on was the eunuch serving the Crown Prince. Kim Yoon-sung found Ra-on and took her to a grassy field for stargazing. He gave her a telescope. Looking at the moon, Ra-on was reminded of the Crown Prince, deepening her sorrow. Kim Yoon-sung's heart ached for her. Meanwhile, the date for the Crown Prince's wedding had been set. Ha-yeon was chosen as the Crown Princess. News spread quickly. Ra-on also learned of this from her mother. Upon hearing of the impending marriage, Ra-on feigned indifference and excused herself. The crown prince sat reading in the garden as usual. A girl approached. He looked up, momentarily believing it was Ra-on, and stood up quickly. He then realized it was Haeyeon. Knowing he could not change the situation, the prince asked the court lady to agree to one condition. "What is your request, your highness?" "Never appear here again. Remember that." He then left, leaving Haeyeon bewildered. Saddened, Ra-on ran to the riverside for solace. Kim Yoon-sung arrived to comfort her, but his words only intensified her grief, and tears flowed uncontrollably. He longed to console her but lacked the courage. That night, the crown prince took out Ra-on's bracelet and gazed at it, reminiscing about their happy times together. "I could stay by your highness' side all day today, never leaving your side for a moment." Looking at his own bracelet and then at the one Ra-on left behind, the prince couldn't hold back his tears. The next day, a man sought out Ra-on. He was sent by a high-ranking official with a letter for her. The letter instructed her to go to a certain location that evening for an important matter. She arrived at the appointed time. Turning around, she saw the person she longed for, the crown prince. As Ra-on stood in surprise, guards surrounded the building, unbeknownst to the two inside, who were immersed in their brief reunion. Despite the prince's attempts to speak to her, Ra-on remained silent, only gazing at him. He called her name and moved closer. Ra-on drew a knife. He stared at her, dumbfounded. She explained that her father's illness, which led to his death, was caused by the king. Yet, the king himself had seen her father off on his final journey. They were now enemies. Despite her words, the prince continued to approach. He took the knife from her hand and placed it against his own bracelet. The beads scattered on the floor. The dagger in Ra-on's hand fell as well. The following day, the crown prince's wedding ceremony took place. As head eunuch Jang placed the ceremonial hat on his head, the prince recalled Ra-on doing the same. The memory brought a pang of sorrow. Ra-on learned of the wedding and sat on a mountainside, gazing towards the distant palace, her heart a mixture of emotions she couldn't quite define. Just as the crown prince was about to depart for the wedding procession, eunuch Jang rushed in to report that the king had collapsed. It turned out that the rebel leader, Hong Kyung-rae, had reappeared. He had sought out Ra-on's mother to take her and Ra-on away. She was shocked by his appearance, but before she could react, soldiers arrived. They hid, and the soldiers searched the area. Seeing no other option, Hong Kyung-rae, despite his formidable martial arts skills, emerged to distract the soldiers. Overpowered by their numbers, he was captured. Upon hearing that Hong Kyung-rae was alive, the king suffered a relapse and fainted. Returning home, Ra-on noticed her mother's unusual behavior and questioned her. She was stunned to learn that her father was still alive. She sought out the high-ranking official, requesting permission to visit her father in the palace. Despite his strong objections, he couldn't deny her desire to see her father. He arranged for her and royal guard Kim to disguise themselves as guards to infiltrate the palace. In the prison, Ra-on met her father for the first time. However, Hong Kyung-rae refused to turn around. Ra-on threw in a handkerchief embroidered with flowers by her mother. As they left the prison, the crown prince happened to pass by. Just a few steps later, they encountered the magistrate from the prime minister's faction. Royal guard Kim urged Ra-on to lower her head and hurry past, but the magistrate noticed something amiss. Royal guard Kim took her to her former quarters, telling her to stay the night and that he would help her escape the following day. Ra-on stared at the familiar surroundings. Suddenly, someone appeared behind her. Turning, she found the crown prince. Learning the reason for her presence, he led her to a secret chamber without a word. The prince instructed her to hide there if pursued. It was a place his late mother frequented, and no one else knew how to access it. Meanwhile, upon returning to the prime minister's residence, the magistrate reported that he believed he had seen Ra-on. The next morning, palace guards were mobilized to search Ra-on's hiding place. The high-ranking official sought out royal guard Kim, urging him to ensure Ra-on's safety. They planned to raid the prison and rescue Hong Kyung-rae in 2 days. Ra-on snuck back into the prison to visit her father. Hong Kyung-rae immediately recognized his daughter. Their first reunion occurred under such circumstances, bringing tears to both their eyes. The crown prince, observing from behind, was heartbroken. As the prince led Ra-on away, eunuch Ma, hidden in a corner, witnessed everything. He rushed back to the palace, encountering Kim Yoon-sung. Seeing his panic, Kim Yoon-sung guessed it concerned Ra-on. Upon learning of Ra-on's presence in the palace, the royal consort intended to lead the search personally. However, Kim Yoon-sung intervened with a fabricated excuse. The consort, impatient, ordered him to move aside. Kim Yoon-sung then revealed her shocking secret. 2 months prior, the consort had given birth, but the child was not a son as she had hoped. To secure the throne for her child and bolster her own power, she ordered her baby to be switched with a newborn boy. Kim Yoon-sung, hidden from view, had witnessed eunuch Ma carrying the baby away. He overpowered the eunuch and took the baby. He used this information to blackmail the consort, demanding she ignore the night's events or he would inform the crown prince. With her weakness exposed, she agreed. Meanwhile, the king again dreamt of Hong Kyong-rae attempting to assassinate him. He awoke in terror, his illness flaring up. He ordered Hong Kyong-rae's immediate interrogation and execution the next day, disrupting the high-ranking officials' plans. He could only inform Royal Guard Kim that they would have to improvise that night, seizing any opportunity to rescue both Ra-on and her father. The interrogation began swiftly. Hong Kyong-rae not only refused to confess but also criticized the king, further enraging him and leading to the order of torture. Even under torture, Hong Kyong-rae remained defiant, denouncing the corrupt officials in court. The king, enraged, ordered his immediate execution. At that very moment, the crown prince stepped forward to defend the old man. In response, the prime minister rose and accused the crown prince of having an affair with Hong Kyong-rae's daughter. This news exploded like a bomb, silencing the room. The king immediately demanded an explanation from the crown prince, but the prince remained silent. The prime minister then ordered the recently captured Ra-on to be brought in. Seeing Ra-on kneeling on the ground, the crown prince could no longer deny the accusations. Witnessing this, the king immediately ordered the execution of both Ra-on and her father. The guards advanced with their swords. Ra-on looked up at the crown prince. "From now on, forget me. Just remember me as the daughter of a traitor. I don't want you to carry the painful memory of not being able to protect the woman you love." Just as the guards were about to strike, members of the hidden Bikun society rose up. Chaos erupted. The king ordered the immediate arrest of the rebels. Suddenly, Kim Byung-yeon, the prince's bodyguard, drew his sword and held it to the crown prince's throat. Everyone was horrified by his actions. "Drop your weapons if you don't want the crown prince to meet the king of hell," Kim Byung-yeon commanded. Hearing this, the head eunuch quickly ordered everyone to disarm. Hong Kyong-rae and Ra-on were protected by the rebels and escorted from the scene. Everyone surrounded Kim Byung-yeon. Archers stood ready to fire. As Kim Byung-yeon moved to sheath his sword, the crown prince stopped him. "Don't sheath your sword. If you do, I will lose you." "Your Highness, I cannot sheath my sword. These are my orders. I cannot obey." The moment Kim Byung-yeon released his sword, an arrow struck him. He pulled it out, only to be hit by another. The crown prince yelled for them to stop, but it was too late. Kim Byung-yeon collapsed in a pool of blood. The crown prince rushed forward, cradling him in his arms, clutching his hand. Kim Byung-yeon looked at the crown prince's face, wanting to reach out and touch him, but he couldn't. Hong Kyong-rae and Ra-on, escorted by the Bikun society, were almost out of the city when they were intercepted by royal guards. The head eunuch stepped forward, producing a token and falsely claiming to be acting on the king's orders to apprehend the prisoners. Just as the guards opened the city gates, the pursuing soldiers arrived. To cover Ra-on and her father's escape, the head eunuch held the gate alone. He was struck down by the pursuing soldiers, dying on the spot. Meanwhile, Chief Eunuch Jang and Kim Yoon-sung found someone transporting Kim Byung-yeon's body. After sending the man away, Kim Yoon-sung prepared to bury him himself. But as he held Kim Byung-yeon's hand, he noticed a twitch in his fingers. 2 months later, the crown prince, having endured countless hardships, appeared to have fallen into debauchery, spending his days in brothels, drinking and seeking pleasure. The prime minister urged other officials to protest in court, seeking to depose the crown prince and install the queen consort's son as heir. The queen consort was delighted by this news, but recalling Kim Yoon-sung's earlier words, she sensed a hidden danger. Just then, a court lady reported that the child had been found. Kim Yoon-sung had secretly been raising him in a brothel. The queen consort went to investigate, but the madam told her that someone claiming to be from the palace had taken the child. As the queen consort returned to the palace gates, she saw Princess Ha-yeon carrying the child away. Upon inquiry, she learned that the crown prince had taken him in. It turned out that the crown prince hadn't been wasting his time in dissipation, but gathering evidence against the prime minister's faction. He ordered his guards to bring the assassin from the East Palace before the king. The king immediately identified 2 magistrates under the prime minister as the ones who had hired the assassin. The magistrates tried to deny it, but the crown prince produced their secret ledger. Panicked, the 2 magistrates were immediately taken to prison. After the court session, the crown prince visited the prime minister. He produced a drawing of a court lady, explaining that she had recently died after giving birth. The body had been found, but the baby was missing. The prime minister immediately understood the implication. That evening, Ha-yeon visited the crown prince, bringing him a restorative tonic and urging him to drink it all. As he lifted the bowl, Ha-yeon suddenly realized something and tried to stop him, but it was too late. After drinking the tonic, the crown prince fell unconscious. Learning of this, scholar Ji-sen rushed to the palace to check on him. Ra-on, disguised as a medical attendant, accompanied him. Seeing the unconscious crown prince, she held his hand, tears streaming down her face. As she wiped his face, he suddenly opened his eyes. He saw Ra-on hazily, but before they could speak, Ha-yeon rushed in. The crown prince then assumed he had been mistaken. After everyone left, scholar Ji-san told the crown prince that the tonic itself wasn't poisoned. The poison had been applied to the rim of the bowl. Fortunately, Ha-yeon's ring had changed color upon contact with the poison, alerting her just in time. This narrow escape prevented the poison from taking full effect and causing serious harm. The crown prince instructed them to keep his awakening a secret. He wanted to discreetly investigate who was responsible for the poisoning. Ra-on visited the crown prince. He pulled her close and removed her veil. "So I wasn't mistaken. Your Highness, you must rest. I was afraid the first person you saw upon waking wouldn't be me. Do you know how long I've waited for you? I hesitated for so long, fearing the person I held on to wasn't you." She told him that she had promised scholar Ji-sen to keep her identity secret, even from him. The crown prince gently took her hand and lifted her sleeve. Seeing the bracelet he had given her still there, he said with a smile, "I'll pretend I don't know. Stay by my side." The next day, the royal concubine brought the princess to visit the crown prince. He told them that his poisoning mirrored the symptoms his mother had experienced before her death, and he intended to use this opportunity to investigate the true cause of her demise. Meanwhile, upon learning of the crown prince's poisoning, the queen consort ordered court lady Ma to steal the child the crown prince had adopted. She planned to take the child out of the palace, but at that moment, the crown prince appeared. The queen consort was startled, but she denied any involvement with the child. The crown prince said, "Confessing everything to the king now is your only chance." He offered her an opportunity. Blinded by ambition, she still resisted. But as she turned to leave, the baby began to cry. This broke her maternal resolve. On one side, after hearing the conversation between the queen and the crown prince, Princess Dong-yoon seemed troubled. Ra-on noticed the young princess's pensive expression and approached her to inquire. Recognizing Ra-on, the princess led her to a specific room. 10 years prior, hidden in a wardrobe within that very room, Princess Dong-yoon had witnessed the crown prince's mother's court lady conceal a letter beneath a rug. The court lady was subsequently eliminated by the prime minister's men. This traumatic experience caused the princess to fall gravely ill and lose her ability to speak. She pointed Ra-on to the letter's hiding place. Ra-on retrieved the age document, but unbeknownst to them, the prime minister's spy witnessed the entire scene. The prime minister immediately dispatched assassins to silence them. Upon hearing this, Kim Yoon-sung approached the prime minister, requesting to personally handle the situation from years ago. The truth of the prime minister's involvement in the crown prince's mother's death was about to be revealed. The king, upon reading the secret letter left by his deceased wife, was overcome with grief. Meanwhile, Ra-on had just returned to her quarters when Kim Yoon-sung arrived. Before they could exchange any words, assassins ambushed them. They quickly seized Ra-on. After only a few steps, Kim Yoon-sung suddenly turned, drew his sword, and engaged the assassins. Though outnumbered, he fought valiantly, eliminating the assassins but sustaining grave injuries in the process. Ra-on rushed to the dying Kim Yoon-sung's side. As she was about to cry, he said, "Don't cry. I don't want the woman I love to shed tears over me." "My lord, you're seriously injured, yet you still jest. Don't be so sad. Promise me you'll be happy." The Prime Minister remained oblivious, discussing with the royal consort how to deal with the child in the Crown Prince's care. Suddenly, the door burst open. The king had overheard their entire conversation. The Crown Prince presented his mother's letter to the Prime Minister, leaving him speechless. At that moment, a panicked eunuch rushed in, announcing Kim Yoon-sung's death. The following day, the Crown Prince delivered his judgment before the court. The Prime Minister, for plotting against the Crown Prince and murdering the Crown Princess, along with his 2 subordinate officials, were sentenced to death. The royal consort, for concealing her identity, switching the princesses, and committing treason, was stripped of her title and banished to the cold palace. Ra-on, for her significant contribution in restoring the royal family's honor, was pardoned for her past crimes, including those of her treasonous father. The king officially abdicated the throne in favor of the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince became a wise and benevolent ruler, beloved by his people, bringing smiles of satisfaction to the 2 men who watched over him in secret. Ra-on chronicled her and the Crown Prince's story, titling it Moonlight Drawn by Clouds. One day, the Crown Prince took her to a field overflowing with flowers. Hand in hand, they strolled through the sea of blossoms, discussing Ra-on's writing. Suddenly, the Crown Prince stopped, took her hand, and asked a peculiar question. "Who are you? Are you the first citizen of the nation I just built?" The little eunuch whose identity was revealed, yet became my beloved. "Then, who am I, Ra-on?" "You are my whole world, my happiness.